Morning, everyone. Richard Miller, Never Not Here. You're welcome. And come often, actually. And somehow I decided that humanity, the whole nut of humanity, was just trying to explain life to ourselves. And we were either doing it by talking or just by trying to intuit or behaving in a certain way and seeing if it works. And then we have a tendency to want to improve that and see if that works, or move it around, change it, see what works. And I think that's pretty good. I mean, even if we're just going to see the Cubs or being in a bar with our friends, we're really seeing how life works. And even if we're criminal, we're seeing how life works. And I don't think there's anywhere, I don't know, if you have any ideas, we're not doing that. Write them in and we'll do a show with you. So anyhow, well, I mean, I like to talk a lot, so then I won't. I'll just say, welcome, Rusty Moe.
Thank you very much. Thank you. It's a privilege. It's a privilege. And thank you for your good work. It's good work. Conversations that matter is good work. So, our good work. So, what I was just thinking about what you said. One of my favorite ways of finding out how other people live and how I get hints about maybe how to live is to, in a sense, look in their linen closets. I love going to people's houses because I think houses are sort of private museums. And I think they're wonderful reflections, or at least I have a heck of a good time pretending that I know what these objects and this atmosphere reflects about the people that I'm with. And it's a wonderful way of using sort of spiritual binoculars, I guess, into other people. So when you said that, I was just thinking of how I love looking in people's linen closets where there's silver.
One time I remember on TV they were showing they went to a bunch of stars' houses, that were really and they went in their fridge, and that was really an eye opener.
Lifestyles of the rich and famous, or rich and hungry. Yeah. Oh boy. Oh.
They had really gourmet peanut butter, but still they were working on jelly and peanut butter. I don't know. There was every kind of thing.
Oh golly. So of course I wonder what people see about me when they come into my house or feel the atmosphere in my house. And I think one of the people that taught me that, who I think is a wonderful prophet, might be too strong of a word, is the writer Alice Walker, who wrote The Color Purple. Remember, I brought her in. One of the things I do here in Indianapolis is bring in speakers, and I brought in Alice Walker for a poetry reading at the Madam Walker Theater downtown Indianapolis. And she came over to the house one night for supper, and we were just talking, and she was asking about all of these objects, and the objects I realized meant a lot to me because they were around me. And she was a wonderful guest, and that helped me be a better host, I think, to her, because she was interested. So it became this mutual blend. It really opened up conversations. What does this picture, what does this mean for you? Where'd you get it? Just fingering cloth, fabric, and saying things like, where did this come from, Rusty? Why did you buy it? And just that wonderful sort of, well, again, emotional archaeology in a sense from her. So
that's amazing. That's amazing because, so many people, especially someone who's been in a house for years and years, 30 years, they've got just mounds of collections, I usually keep like one trunk, with a couple of photos and maybe a few little artifacts or something. I don't even know where the heck it is, if there is one.
I have a little box in a stand beside my bed with strands of my mother's hair that I cut off her after she died. My father's belt, which was when he had like a 27-inch waist. All of these things that will be junk as soon as I'm dead, but to me, it's my history, so yeah. And that history brings me into the now all the time, that conversation between history and being never not here, so.
I confess to the same, but I mean, somehow I so rarely look at it. I mean, it's there somewhere, but somehow it's like this little anchor point that I know that's there, and say
Is
I can reach it. Where some people are really tied to a story and the whole
mm-hmm.
complexity of a memory path, and I pretend as if that's minimal with me, but I don't know if it's true.
Well, you don't even know where it is, right? Your little box of artifacts.
Gee, I don't know.
So
I
you don't
used to
even.
have a trunk, and I don't know. I don't think I have that anymore.
Wow.
I know where
Well,
some love letters are from my last wife.
wife's their wife.
That's a dangerous one.
Where are those? Oops. Okay. How are we doing so far?
Oh boy. I mean, I was just mystified by something that came into my life just short weeks ago, and it was somebody that was really observing children as a life. She was Jungian, maybe, I don't know if she was an analyst or what, but that was kind of her background. And then she observed, well, anyhow, just to say, the part that I want to say right now is somehow the metaphor of a newborn infant, and she was saying that the range of voice, or the range of voice is very wide, from very loud from a very small body, and and a great range, and also the range of movement is very wide. And I think I took that as a metaphor for consciousness being very wide.
Huh.
And then, yeah, and then it seemed that the immediate process was to somehow tone that down and bring that back into what I call a cultural box.
Mm.
And that was the process of being born and kind of being enculturated. And not every child or not every being adapts to that readily. And I got 4 categories. And the one category was very forgetful of the wide state of being an infant. And they were easy to numb down, and they were easy to get into the cultural box and play the game to the fullest, and maybe they even excelled at it. And that's the ones that we would say are well-adjusted people. Mm-hmm. And the second category was one that somehow, they don't do this on purpose, but I mean, this is just the reaction that happens. Somehow that turns inside, and then it kind of attacks the whole the physical being, and the body gets sick. And so many kids really have a lot of infant diseases and a lot of trouble even until they're in their early teens, before they kind of shake all that fragility. And so then I took it that somehow there was like not easy to give up that, and they had a remembrance of that wide state, and they just didn't want to give it up, and be put into some kind of a containment, like, hey, behave yourself. These are the norms. This is a social thing. This is how we speak. This is our language. This is our thought patterns. This is what, builds this society. Please participate. They didn't want to do it. And then a third category would be a category that would strike out and be aggressive and counter social, and end up as a ruthless businessman, or a politician, or a graft, somebody that accepts graft, or somebody that is actually a criminal, or people that lash out against society. And we would label those as deficient beings. Maybe even we'd say they're evil, and depending on how much they got into hurting others. And then fourth category would be kind of like total withdrawal, or different amounts of withdrawal, which would be like learning disabilities, or mentally handicapped. And what happened to me was that, when I started to read this, I said, this is not about kids. This is about the world as we know it. And basically, this is a description of how we run the world, and what, the dysfunctionality is just all these 4 infantile reactions to coming into the game of humanity as we know it. And
Are you familiar with the James Hillman's book, The Soul's Code?
No, I'm not.
He uh, he's a Jungian, and he talked about the entertainer Judy Garland, the singer Ella Fitzgerald, and Adolf Hitler. And one of the things that struck me about what he talked about, or how he talked about Judy Garland, he talked about her life and her talent as the way you've been talking, as so enormous that the culture that she moved into real early in her life didn't know what to do with that amount of talent except exploit it and use it for itself, and then shut it down with pills or wake it up with pills when they wanted her to make money or when they wanted her to sleep. And she became, I don't want to say a victim of that, but she became inheritor of that continual tamping down of her that great gift, and eventually she shut her own self down in some ways. But what you're saying reminded me of that. Whereas somebody like Ella Fitzgerald in James Hillman's book sort of had an that acorn in her that she responded to. She didn't even want to be a singer; she wanted to be a dancer. And she was out on the stage of the Apollo, or she was supposed to be on the stage dancing, and she was too nervous, so she went out and sang. And that voice just, So there's an example, at least in Hillman's interpretation, of somebody who stayed very clear and didn't let anybody tamper with her gift. She held it and nourished it herself. So not that one was right or one was wrong, or this is the way to do it, because there isn't a way. Or it's like a client of mine once said, "Rusty, I have the answer. There is no path, and we're always on it."
As far as what I was saying, like I can look at my life. In fact, I haven't looked at it in a long time. A couple of people asked me a few questions in some other interviews, and it just came clear to me that I tried all those different paths. And I remember one of the first ones, when I was in first and second grade, I was almost brain dead, in a way I was very, very slow. And I was really withdrawn. I couldn't really do my sums or my words or nothing like that. I couldn't even, when other people could do 20 of them, I couldn't work through 2 or 3. And I was just frozen. Mm-hmm. And then also when I was young, actually 7 and 11, I had surgeries, major surgeries. So I was an ill person. I tried that one. And then I know by the time I was in 5th grade, I was like the most rambunctious and the most, what do you call it, in school. I was the one that was breaking the trying to make a lash outward. And so I tried that, and I don't know if I ever was very good at playing the game and numbing myself to living in this box. Of course, I never realized it in those terms, I never realized it in those terms. I didn't know anything about a box or culture, or I didn't know anything about an original state, supposed theoretical or an untheoretical original state of wider state. And
how did you come to that more consciously?
No, it just happened. Just happened a week or so ago when I met this. I didn't meet anyone, but somebody gave me a movie of somebody speaking about children, and she talked about those 4. She only talked about 3, really, but I just intuited the 4th one was just accepting culture and accepting this limitation that, basically we're going to play the game this way because a game has to have rules. And so somehow accepting those rules was the obvious 4th state, the so-called well-adjusted.
Normalcy is overrated, isn't it? Well, so just what you say a week and a half ago, that just lit up for you when you were watching it,
right?
That idea, and that made sense. I mean, did you feel like you got sort of realigned in some way?
Yeah, I was in a way. I was a realignment, because I've been trying to kind of really find some foundations, foundations of how we are. I've always been kind of, especially on the show, been searching for the foundations of how we are the way we are, and looking for the mechanism, the mind-body mechanism, or how does consciousness appear through our memory, and what does that do to it? Looking the memory effect. And
I like what you said about the foundations, plural, rather than foundation. Do you think there's a single call for people, or that there are several destinies depending on how we choose? Do you know what I mean? And destiny might be too loaded. I don't know, but what do you think?
Yeah, okay. You want to say more about it, or should I just go for
Just
it?
talk. I'm curious about this notion of a call or a single path or multiple paths, or how do what in us chooses these ways, or the way. I'm fascinated by that.
Well, of course, every way is an interpretation.
Mm-hmm. Good.
And so every interpretation has an alternative, and maybe 1,000 alternatives. So then, if we settle on one and say, oh, this is it, well, I don't know how we'd ever settle on it, it's only temporary.
Right.
And somehow things are appearing in my life without really having a label on them, calling, that says I'm a call. Answer me, please. And it could go any way. Like there's some huge opportunities that could crack for me just in these next weeks, and maybe they won't. And really, each way is beautiful, because one is a lot of work and one is a lot of rest. I'm always able to get enough work going, so I don't need it.
It's the rest part that kind of appeals.
Not even that, because I'm always I'm in motion,
Uh-huh. Uh-huh. Do you think something then like a call is in motion also?
Of course.
Okay.
Well, we get good at something, or we're qualified for something, because sometimes it takes a qualification to get in a door.
Right.
Maybe if you get old enough and you're a nice guy, they'll give you an honorary degree or something. But I'm not about to go back to graduate school.
Without being good at it.
Yeah.
Well,
and so then when you have a qualification, then you can say, I'll just keep going through that door, because it's easy to get through.
Uh-huh.
And so then that could appear as a call.
Can a call box us in then?
Always.
Always. I see. How do you think that happens, that a call would box us, that we're so qualified, these qualifications, how does that box us in?
Well, that becomes a need.
It becomes a need?
Yeah.
Mm.
A need is a box. A need is not really there. It's
like
perceived. A need is perceived as something that I need to do, that it's a whole thing that it's a metaphor for incompleteness, I say. That tomorrow could be better. You could play a game, but if you really believe it, that I got to do this, I don't know, neediness. I've just been working on metaphors lately, and not so much the real description.
Uh-huh. You're talking about the symbolism of them?
Well,
of the metaphor? You said not just the description. You mean more symbolic?
Well, a lot of the description, a lot of people, what do? They try to tell how it is and what's real. That's a description, right? And then I think those are kind of arbitrary, and they can't be true. In the end, there can't be anything like that true. But it can be helpful for a while, maybe.
For a while. So a need is a metaphor for incompleteness. I like that.
Yeah.
I like what you
right.
said. Huh.
Incompleteness is basically separateness too, So the more I'm separate, or feel that I'm separate, it's not like a blending of boundaries or anything that's mystical or magical. Just separate means that, I can exist without nature maybe, which I can't, but I can believe I can, and that I can abuse nature. nature. I mean, nature is the natural state, maybe without man's structures in it, meaning that, because I mean, even man's structures are innate in nature.
Mhm. Are we ever complete as human beings, as incarnated beings
Oh
in the
yeah,
flesh?
you know what?
What?
We're always complete. Not.
Beautiful. Beautiful.
There's
How does
never a way we
how
could
do
not be complete. There's never a way that we could not be complete, you know. And so then that's
okay.
the why it's impossible to do because it's already the done deal.
So we're already whole and on the way to wholeness in a
No, no,
sense.
we're not on the way to wholeness. We're already whole.
We're,
Period.
I love this. What what aspect of us? Every aspect physically. Right now, we're whole. Our culture's whole. The world is whole.
I think it has to be that way because there's so much testimony that that's the way it is, and it doesn't appear that way. In other words, wholeness is not an idea.
Hmm.
And so then, if we're looking at the world through ideas and thoughts, which we all are, then it doesn't appear whole. But the whole part of it is not a thought pattern. It's what's happening already. It's what makes the planets go around the sun. That's the wholeness, and it's what gives every creature its own natural habitat and its own life cycle. That's the wholeness.
If we're already whole, then are we as fragile as we keep telling ourselves we are?
Well, I mean, fragile, wholeness doesn't mean you're not going to die
Right, right,
or
right,
decay. That's part of wholeness, right? And
right,
so
right,
then if that's our only definition of wholeness is not decaying or not being fragile, then of course it's not going to seem like it works.
right. So fragility is part of wholeness.
Of course.
Death, decay, decomposition, being born. Hmm. What's your definition of whole right now?
Whatever wholeness is, it probably doesn't have anything to do with the definition of wholeness.
Hmm. That's I'm not playing devil's advocate because I don't do that at all well. I've tried. What uh, is that? That sounds exotic. How would you put that in, as an example? What that wholeness isn't even a good word for wholeness. Is that what you're saying?
Well, I mean, wholeness is not an idea. It's just
It's not an
it
idea.
just is. And so then you can say it with ideas. You probably could do an eloquent description of wholeness, but it still wouldn't be wholeness. So even if you did a clumsy one, it wouldn't be that much farther away or that much closer.
So
Let
go
me
ahead.
try. Let me try to set a foundation for another kind of a look at things.
Sure.
Uh, let's just go back and say that if it's true that when an infant's born, they kind of have a very wide possibility.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
In other words, there is a wide range of motion, a wide range of sounding, a wide range of seeing, a wide range of knowing. Not knowing necessarily, but there's sums and fractions and division, long division and stuff like that, but just knowing about life.
Mm-hmm.
And there's nothing to limit it as far as like a known type of language or, one dictionary over another or something like that. I mean, in a way, that's a limitation because, I mean, if there is 500,000 words, okay, well, there's not 501,000. But let's just say that's in a way there is a natural state, and then somehow that natural state gets molded.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm not exactly sure how I want to phrase this, so then let me see what comes. Let me just say that maybe then this could be there. I'll ask a question if this is the difference between spiritual work, so-called, and other kinds of counseling. One kind of a counseling, Okay, so then this natural state is molded into, let's just call it a cultural box.
Mm-hmm.
And then a spiritual study, in a way, tries to get out of the cultural box and notice this natural state from the natural state. If there's any tricks to doing that, I don't know if there is or isn't. And other kinds of counseling and therapy stay in the cultural box and try to fix it.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
But they're still caught in those limitations. And I don't know how does it work? I mean, can it work? Do those limitations get in your way, or still can you work around it and somehow make some repairs?
I think the word you used, limitations. I think that limiting according to who, according to what culture, what your family, what is, boy, limit. That's a good word. Because you're saying that we're unlimited and yet we're conditioned, right?
Yeah, more or less. I don't necessarily have to say unlimited either, because I could say less limited and more limited, because we don't have to posit a state that's totally open or blown away. But let's just say there's more to it than we generally play with life. The way we play with life, there's really more to it. Otherwise, we could never grow or never have any inspiration, right? If this was all of life that we just embody in our culture, our Western civilization or whatever.
Mm-hmm. I think one of the ways I look at my profession as a psychotherapist is to keep hope alive. So I don't try to look at someone's background, and I work on this with myself too, to look at my own background. I'll just use myself as a constipator, of my growth. I look at what I'm trying to look at what I've been given, what my clients have been given, what my students have been given, and see those as, how do we mine those? How do we mine those for possibility? When you were talking, I was thinking about a time I was 14 years old, and I was constantly getting A's in English in the 9th grade. I loved my teacher, and I forget her name, but I remember they sent us our report cards, and I got it that day. It was like June something, and I looked at it, and I got another A, and I always wanted to be a writer. I've been writing on my Tom Thumb typewriter since 2nd grade, so 7 years old. And so I ran outside. My dad was mowing the lawn with a push mower, and I said, Dad, I got an A in English. I'm going to be a writer. And he never stopped pushing the mower. He just said, Moes don't write. And something inside me closed, but I couldn't stop writing, So something in me, I guess that could have been a limitation. I never stopped writing, but always in my head, it's like, Moes don't write every day. So I was 50 before I published my first book. I'm 62 now, and I have 4 published. But I still held on to that. Now, I don't know I don't think my father was trying to limit me, and maybe sort of having to struggle against that whole notion that Moes don't write. Maybe that created me into more of a writer, if I don't want to throw myself into some large category of writer, but maybe that working with that and struggling with it turned me into more of a writer than if my dad said, well, you're going out to the Iowa Writers School, My God. So I don't know. It's interesting, the whole notion of limitations and boxes. I'm loving the way you talk, and we're talking. And it seems like to me what you're saying too, because you seem to embody this as I'm watching you, silence is important in freeing up, if that's the right word, or putting some space around limitations. Would you say that? Because I notice when we talk, you get quiet and then you come out with an answer. And I wish I had that, because I admire that in people who wait rather than who I'm kind of kick ass. Let's go for it. Let's talk now. I get all the answers we can. And I love your stillness. So I'm wondering for myself if quiet, stillness, silence isn't part of containing our limitedness and unlimitedness too. How does that sound to you? Or am I rambling?
I mean, it might even be in the Bible something about how when you need guidance, it can come from within.
Mm-hmm.
And I think it's kind of like a teaching that gets around in a lot of different cultures and religions and so on. And that is kind of like the point where this guidance is delivered, is kind of in a silent field.
Mm-hmm.
And it doesn't really come by a logic extrapolation.
Mm-hmm.
And that's if you want, if you're always caught in logical extrapolations, it's like, it's kind of like, where does this lead? And this leads there, and pull on this. It's kind of like having some gum or something and pulling it out, pulling it out, a taffy pull or something, and seeing where is it going to go. And somehow you have to, that kind of activity probably doesn't really receive guidance. And one is always puzzled by that kind of a statement that whatever you need guidance, it will come from within. And maybe it was meant from Jesus or the Lord or in the Bible, I don't know. Or I don't know about the Hebrew text or Muslim texts or other texts.
What would you say? Oh, go ahead.
Go ahead.
Sorry.
No.
I was curious about what I've asked many people this. One of them, I think the last person I asked this was Gary Renard, who wrote a book called The Disappearance of the Universe. We were having lunch, and I said, what in us is listening to that voice, that it knows that voice, that guidance? And I'm very curious about what you think it is within us, or talk about the limitation of words, huh? Within us that can listen. Where are the ears?
Yeah,
for
right.
That kind of
So, you can put a word on it and say consciousness and all these kinds of things. But I mean, isn't that the miracle of life, that we're able to receive? And we can receive words and sights and sounds and the five senses. And if there's any other senses, maybe they're more quiet, and then if the other louder senses are always laying on top, like an oil slick on top of the pond or something. But that's all you see is the oil, the reflections of the oil. And so then you don't really know if a human has other extrasensories and so on, or interior knowings or hearings or receivings. But somehow reception is a part of life, because every morning we're, something's here and we're receiving it.
Right.
And a lot of times I say that, and then I say, then the other thing is we like to tell about it, to tell a story about it.
Mm-hmm.
And so then we get caught a lot, our attention goes to what we think is important. And so I guess most of us think our story is important, because our attention is always on that story, or so often anyhow.
Is it the story, or the story we tell about ourselves about the story?
Well, both are the story. That's all the story means, the interpretation part, basically. It's a verbal model. It's based on language, so without words, I don't know if it would be there. I don't know if there would be a heavy-duty thinking pattern just in images. Let's say that didn't have any labels with them, or didn't have any meanings associated with them, or didn't have any feelings associated with those meanings. Because our memories are really rich, complex things. They're not only just a sterile paragraph of description, or just a whole stack of images. All of them have actually a desire, fear quotient in them, every memory. Or even a boring quotient, which is kind of like, it's a fear too, right? Boring just means like life is passing, and it's like grains of sand going through your hand, and you're losing it, and that's a fear, like nothing's happening. Boring.
I get stuck on words. What's your personal definition of fear?
Well, fear is just like, what's here is not all right. Mostly it has to do with later, though, because how could you be? you're fearful now that things aren't right, but mostly it's that it's not. It's an idea. Fear is only an idea, because it only can be about the future, and the future never shows up. The future only shows up as a thought. So fear is a thought that has a contractive feeling that goes with it, squeezes you, and it's always about tomorrow.
So fear is future driven.
Only. How could it be about past? You'd just be happy if you were totally screwed in the past and you were gone and it was gone. It was a long gone or downstream. You'd be joyous and happy. Whoa, I got over that one. But you're just afraid that it's going to happen tomorrow too. It's an idea. It doesn't really appear here in the now. The idea appears here, but the fear is not really based in what's. It never seems to be here, even if you're going to death row, you're walking down to the gallows.
Mm-hmm.
You're not. There's no gallows right here where you're afraid of it until you get to the gallows. Maybe when you get to the gallows, it's a huge relief. Who knows?
The fear is whole at that point. Once the floor drops out, that's complete.
Right on.
Maybe. Where does love fit into all this? I'm trying to think. Whatever that, love, I don't know what that is. Or do we even need to talk about that? Love.
Well, what the testimony is that that is the nature of. Let's say there's a thing called oneness or something, or the boundaries are elusive. That really. We could say things like, okay, what are we made out of? We're stardust, right? And then we could say we're earth, because we're just all the chemicals and stuff that is the earth. And then we need it, we have to be eating it in the form of other beings and then excreting it.
Mm-hmm.
And so then there is a real tight pattern of life that with everything that we know.
Mm-hmm.
And so then the way to explain that is called oneness. Actually, we're only one. There isn't two, non-duality.
Mm-hmm.
And so then oneness means that actually everything is it's inclusiveness is a better way to say it in our culture, I think. Inclusiveness, because let's just say, okay, for instance, let's say you're a business and you make some exotic product and there's only 2 or 3 places in the world that have that raw material stream.
Mm-hmm.
So then your suppliers are included, totally included into your business. Without them, you'd be dead duck. Whereas if another business everybody makes that junk, you can get it all over, then your suppliers are really, you pit them against each other and try to really get them to fall, and if they fall, maybe they have a warehouse full of stuff and they'll give it away for free. Just take this off my hands. I got to pay this lease off, then you're not including them. Okay, well, that's just the idea of inclusiveness. Okay, inclusive air is included because it's not included until it's polluted. And then you say, oh my God, I can't breathe this stuff.
Mm-hmm.
And then all of a sudden it gets important. And so inclusiveness is the idea, is sometimes explained as oneness, and then sometimes it's talked about it as a relationship, and that we could love that, or we could love or hate, or we have some choices there. But if it's really true inclusiveness, then love is just like, do I love my little finger? No, but it's totally included, and I do everything for it. And right, so then love is just the nature of wholeness.
The nature of wholeness.
And when everything else drops away, every kind of like illusion of separateness and neediness, love is all that's left.
This might be a small word, or not an irrelevant word. What is forgiveness? I'm treating you like my guru, so I'm settled down at your feet. But maybe I'm talking to myself, right? That's what you're saying. But forgiveness.
Oh yeah, oh God. I'll have to consult my quiet field.
Hmm. Forgiveness is, are you saying forgiveness is your quiet field?
No.
Oh,
I mean, forgiveness is like, I don't know, we believe in cause and effect.
which is an idea.
Yeah, I mean, we're seeking a pattern, right? We're looking at life and we're seeking a pattern.
Mm.
And then somehow it's real tricky because, in order to see the pattern, first of all, we see things, or let's just say it like this, that we see what is, and then we interpret it, right? But
Mm-hmm.
that interpretation is also how we see it. Somehow
Mm-hmm.
we're looking through that interpretation. So it's unclear exactly whether we're causing that pattern or whether we're really discovering it.
Mm-hmm.
It's unclear. And so then a lot of times that pattern looks like something follows something else.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
And we call it cause and effect.
Mm-hmm.
And so then we look at that in relationships too, like something caused, something happened in a relationship with another and it caused something. And I liked it one time and another time I didn't like it.
Mm-hmm.
So then we take that cause and effect and we say, they did it. They done it to me. I'm a victim.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
See? And then
Mm-hmm.
that's a whole idea that that people could actually be a cause of my life, someone else or what someone else does, or it's a belief structure and it appears in ideas.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
It doesn't really appear without the interpretation. But I mean, what is all there is to be said. But if you're saying no, there's a pattern,
Mm-hmm.
and then this guy always does that, and then I get sick. He coughs, and then his germs get me. Right.
Yes.
Or whatever, And so then we get this idea that I'm like I am because of the others. And, everything, ideas, whenever I say ideas, I'm not talking just about sterile words. Every word has a feeling in it, a feeling sense, a felt sense, which is like a physical reaction, which is either opening or closing. And when it's closing, and then it's a constriction or a contraction, then things don't flow so good, and it feels weird. Actually, it feels weird to open too, because we can close better than we can open. We are willing to allow closing to happen more than we're willing to allow openness to happen.
And closing and opening mean what?
Oh, it's just your emotions. It's just how you're it's just how your instrument of your mind and body work with basically concepts, ideas. Ideas like, oh, this is bad. And then there's all closing up. Squeezing, and then you say, oh, this is great. Oh, and then there's just an opening up. And so then those are the two basic movements, in and out.
Mm-hmm.
And so then forgiveness is just is somehow must be just realizing that my cause and effects with regard to relationships are false, or they're not what I always thought they were. I don't know that they're false, but maybe I don't believe in them so strongly anymore. And that you can put a lot of explanation on it. Like you can say, well, I'm getting what I need, or I'm learning from this more than I would learn from always having my way. You can make all kinds of explanations. But I don't know. That must be forgiveness. I don't know. What do you think?
Well, I was just thinking that what you're saying, I'm trying to receive it, or receiving it in my way anyway. That with awareness comes a greater and greater and greater responsibility, with consciousness. As it opens, that there's much responsibility to that, isn't there?
Now, what do you mean by that?
By responsibility?
Yeah.
Well, I'm more connected, or I'm more aware of the oneness to my fellow human beings, to my planet, to my cosmos.
Inclusive.
Inclusive. Back to that.
Yeah.
Back You said, and with that inclusiveness, with the awareness or opening into that inclusiveness or realizing that I'm already there, uh, that puts a lot of pressure on my ego, which only wants to be me, 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 me. There's that struggle with that. You know what I'm saying? Because my ego just wants the familiar, the historical, what it's already, the tight patterns, like you said earlier. But consciousness is going, oh, there's more to it than that, babe. There's more to. A friend of mine once said that he thought therapy was realizing you weren't the only person in the room. So,
yeah, we do get self-centered. But anyhow, responsibility, of course, a lot of gurus say ability to respond, and of course, yes. When you're more centered, you do have a greater ability to respond because there's less limitation about.
Right. Right.
But responsibility is a burden, like I that's an illusion to say that I did this to myself or I'm culpable.
Yeah.
Not that kind of responsibility.
No, that's good. Yeah, because that kind of responsibility, I've noticed if I'm somewhere near that sphere of inclusion, that I'm energized. Nothing's drawn out of me. That connectedness is its own reward in a sense,
Well, responsibility wouldn't be pride either, because you wouldn't say, "Oh, I done that."
Exactly. Yeah.
No, you'd realize, I realize, and even a simple guy like me realizes that I don't know how the hell this happened. I don't do any of this.
There is no path, and we're always on it. I mean, and how that works, who knows? Yes, that's surrender, isn't it? In a sense, which is another word, but we've got to use it's like it's the big Om. OM.
Well, surrender, I mean, for me, surrender is not a practice, but it's somehow just losing interest in what doesn't work.
That's beautiful. Yeah. And becoming interested in what does.
Yeah, always there's a great interest. There's a huge, immense curiosity and interest of what brings life forward and what.
Yes. Well, your curiosity, you're talking about attention.
Yeah, exactly.
Well,
attention just goes to what you're interested in. We were just saying, I mean, I don't know if we said that, I think. But then it can go to what you're curious. But if you're in a fear structure, you probably think there's no time for curiosity. I got to solve this problem. I got to get out of here. I'm about to get fried. And so then curiosity or interest, those kind of new interests don't come in. The only interest is the interest in avoiding the frying pan, which is your belief in your fears. And it's all about tomorrow again, which is not here, never was, never will be. And it's just a thought. So that's the only way tomorrow can come up is a thought. It never comes. I mean, can't go there.
Well, again, you keep coming back, I in a way, to the name of the show, right? Never Not Here. I mean, we're never not here.
It kind of works, I mean, I was thinking it's a little bit esoteric, but it searches good.
No, it's fun to plummet. How did you come up with the name of the show? Because I feel like we've been.
It was kind of a gift, like everything. It just popped. And the very first show, it popped right away,
It popped into you?
Yeah, I don't know. Someone must have said it or something. Hey, golly, we're never not here. And I thought, right on.
That's true. Yeah. Wow. This is wonderful.
How do you like what I said about, okay, this is spirituality is trying to look at the openness from the openness of the human possibility, the full human possibility, and trying to say, well, how can we see the openness if we're looking from the constriction? It'll never see. There's no way to see it, And so somehow we've got to, fake it or somehow get into the openness and somehow then maybe we can perceive this thing they're talking about that's supposedly so huge and all that. How can we do it, And then the other thing is like the way we try to fix the world is always from the closedness. Mm-hmm. How are we going to heal the world? Whether we're healing, doing psychoanalysis, or healing the individual, or healing the institution, or healing the family, or healing the community, or basically the world, or healing the energy crisis, or healing the environmental crisis, or no matter what we're doing, we're always trying to fix it from that broken spot, from that constricted, contracted state. And so somehow that seems like so far it's never worked, right? I mean, at least from the aromatic, is that
Aramaic?
Yeah, the Aramaic is the language of the Middle East, right? And where the Jewish and Christians finally came out of, and Muslims, and that all their history is rife with warfare, like for 4,000 years or something, and gods that rain destruction and stuff like that. And so then trying to fix that in any way, with any scriptures, with any gospel truths, has never worked, never really touches where, the wars are worse now than ever. Even one guy can make a war just by strapping on some dynamite.
Yeah.
And it never could happen before like that. One guy was powerless to make it be problematic.
Healing is a lousy word, isn't it?
What, healing?
Yeah, it's a lousy word because it makes it that means there's something the matter with us.
You got to be sick before you can heal,
And that's such a mechanistic way of looking at things.
Well, I mean, even healing comes out of our, isn't one of our main religions saying that you're an original sin and that you got to have a bridge. So healing is part of our whole way of looking. And it's kind of a way to humble yourself, which is maybe interesting or useful, but to say that you can't be in AA without saying I'm an alcoholic, right?
Mm-hmm.
So then, there must be some value to that, but if that's your actually only credo, then it's really mission impossible, that I'm just a lump of coal and I want to be a diamond.
I'm never not here. I'm always an alcoholic. Boy, talk about a box. Yeah, I was thinking of healing as a lousy word, just in the sense of it. I'm healed. I'm sick, so I need to be healed. And I'm wondering, maybe it's our attitudes that need healing, not the illness. So I don't know. And healing does come from the word whole, doesn't it? Salve, salvation, salving. But it's almost taken on a warrior type of term rather than something that's gentle. Now, I don't know how gentleness. Maybe I want to be gentle with myself rather than be healed. That gentleness would include my healing. If that was to be whatever was sick.
Say about the warrior part.
Well, it's that. Warrior's the opposite of oneness, isn't it? Being a warrior, because I need an enemy, to make me feel safe and secure within my own viewpoints, and so I'm just I think my ego is a great warrior,
Well, it definitely is it's a whole context of warrior, something of many forces, right? Mm-hmm. And somehow the winner lives better.
Yeah.
It's a whole belief in that structure. So then separation is the key to it.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
Boundaries are what's worshipped.
Right. Oh, that's good. I love the way you think, Richard. You really are tumbling this stuff around. How do you incarnate these thoughts? How do you do it? Like oneness.
No kidding. No, it's just like I don't do it. See, that's when you just learn that. When you learn that you don't have to do it, And that's that kind of field of silence. And that's kind of like where guidance is delivered. Then when you realize there's a place like that, then you can go anywhere. And you don't have to do anything. And so you're totally free. I was saying the other day that I wouldn't mind interviewing Obama or anybody, Osama bin Laden either, because I wouldn't do it. It would just happen, and I wouldn't have any. There's no personal limitation. I couldn't go real fast, because I'd have to be able to resort to my secret trick of being quiet. So if somebody was really fast, and they would walk all over me. But if I had my 5 minutes in the debate, I would just shine. I wouldn't shine. It would, but the shining would happen through me.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. So the shining is always present. Mm-hmm.
Yeah, not when you want it necessarily. It comes when it comes. Right. So in a way, what I'm trying to do these days is lay a foundation for not only how the individual works, but how the world works, because I think it's the same actually. And it helped me a lot when I heard that lady. Actually, her name's Edith Sulwald. But when I heard her talk about kids in those 4 contexts of coming into being, let's say, and then I saw the world in that, and then I've been thinking of global peace. I've been thinking of global peace through commerce is what I've been thinking of, and I just thought, well, how is business ever going to promote global peace? And that somehow in business being a perfect reflection of the businessman, of the politician, of the citizen.
How so? How do you see that as going back to your word earlier, a metaphor for the individual and the global, and business being perfect metaphor for that?
Well, I don't know. Let's see. I'll say it again. I think that maybe the personal is a metaphor for business, because the way we treat ourselves is the way we treat others, and the way we treat others is the way we treat our customers and our suppliers and our competitors. And again, we might be warriors, just like we said. We might take it on that everything is separate, and that we win if we take everyone's stuff. And then, even that is limited, because if we took everybody's stuff, nobody would be there to buy anything from us. We just strip them naked. So we got to leave a little bit of money here and there, or money or something, I don't even know. Money's a whole nother subject. And I'd like to lay that foundation, but since you do work with the individuals, maybe you would be really good at laying it. Saying what drives us, or are we just driven by? Could it be that it's just all infancy? That the way we, and I'm not saying it's conscious, it's just a happening. But the way we, what's the word I'm looking for? Just how we reacted to this problem of somehow coming into society, whether we got fragile, whether we withdrew, whether we lashed out, even lashing out, you have to believe that there's someone there that can lash out. So that's already a belief structure that's numbed quite a bit from the original open state. Whereas the other ones, withdrawal and illness, are more or less still seeing that I'm just openness is all I am, is capability of seeing. There's nothing there's nobody and no one to lash out. There's no, it might be taken as a disability, like I'm not good enough. I can't even fight for my rights. But those four descriptions seem to fit everything you see.
I wish I was more Jungian.
Yeah. Well, I don't know if there's a cure to it, but I'm just wondering if acknowledging it isn't important.
Acknowledging, oh yes. What is it? Yeah, something can't be healed, going back to that word, something can't be healed unless it's named. And it sounds like those four stages are really important to you. Um, and they sound very worthy of exploration by the people. Hmm. As you've been talking, though, what I've been thinking of is, I wonder what our attention to one another, how that opens us up, you know, and helps us acknowledge and maybe trust in our own gifts, you know, for to add to the hope of the hope of consciousness of everything, sentient and insentient, so called. I don't know. I'm just thinking of a picture I saw out in Santa Fe. It was called First Moments. I walked into this gallery this past September, and there was about a 4 by 5 foot painting by a woman from Colorado of a mother goat licking her newborn. And the title of it was First Moments. And I kept going back to that and standing in front of it and welling up, you know, and emotionally going, what is grabbing me about, because I'm not usually that responsive to art. Uh, and it finally dawned on me that that's what that kind of pure attention that mama goat was given its little one, is it called a kid or a kidlet? I don't know. That what it was given that its newborn was what I've yearned for all my life. Now, I probably have gotten it, but there was something in me that still felt that was an inborn craving. Yearning is the only word I can come up with for that. And as soon as I named it, as soon as that word came to me, I just took a deep breath, because that's what it was. I want that sort of attention. And that's not an ego thing, I don't believe, you know. It's something in me wanted to connect with that moment. So I don't know how, there's something about attention and holding one another within our attention that brings forth gifts, the naturalness of us, the authenticity of us. What are you smiling about?
So that attention must be an important part of your work, and the way you
Yeah.
give attention to others that come to you.
Maybe I lick people's foreheads, you know, maybe that's what therapy is. Licking people's foreheads with a loving tongue, you know, and there are all kinds of theories on how to use that tongue, you know, with clients. But I think I do. I think I do. Thank you for saying that. I hope I do. I heard Scott Peck, who wrote The Road Less Traveled, said that for him, and for myself, I think this is true also, that attention is the purest form of love. That sort of compassionate curiosity, you know, just that, who are you? What are you? How are we?
Let's just say a few words about it then, because, I mean, let's just say, well, what is it that allows that attention? In other words, somehow it's what disallows it, I guess, is somehow belief that, I don't know, it just says that's not important, you know, but what's going on here is so important, so vital, you know, maybe because of a risk or something. But, you know, what turns the attention away from, I mean, and therefore what can allow the attention to be given in a pure way, meaning just without any interruption.
Mm.
What allows that? And if you can't say what allows it, then say, well, what is it that stops it?
Well, you used the word earlier, fear. I think fear stops it. I think ego is another word for fear. So I think my ego stops it because it feels itself to be separate somehow. We're this flesh enclosed ego here, a lot of the time, most of the time. And what allows the attention? The tension's always there. Like you said, it's never not there. But and I know, like seeing the mama goat and the baby goat, that was oneness. That moment of her, there's
Right.
this great, so
Yeah, but we're
it's
saying not that
beyond
it's what allows it to be, because okay, it's there all the time, but what allows it to be focused outward without any hesitation or reservation.
trust, trust, trust that what's given won't be taken away. Trust that what's given will be, yeah, not withdrawn. I think I feel so infantile talking about this because I think it goes back to an early state in my life, so I'm not very articulate. But for me, it's trust. Yeah, yeah, nobody's going anywhere. We're all here together. We're here, we're all in this together. Maybe you and I talking is a way of making one of those moments, paying attention to one another, leaning in, feel the silence.
Right. For sure.
Yeah. Being curious. But that's all too intellectual. I think it's much more primal than that. Primal consciousness, and that doesn't mean subconsciousness, but very a true energy, a true field. I like that word.
I think curiosity can exist without being intellectual.
Yes.
I think that's a good word.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Good. Thank you.
And
yes.
Interest is wider than curiosity, because you can be curious and interested, but usually you're always interested in something,
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
So then
mm-hmm.
mostly it's me, and how I'm deficient and how I could get better. It's a belief that I'm needy, and
mm-hmm.
mostly that's the main interest.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
Until sooner or later you feel like, well, how can I be needy? Or is that for real, And then you're allowing your interest to roam a little more. And you're allowing your attention to be, to land on something and just be there for no reason, because it's not going to help you. It's not going to help that neediness of yours. But then you're doubting that neediness is for real. So then you're just saying, well, I don't know, here's where I landed. Let me just be here without even a thought.
I like what you said earlier when you said neediness for you is a metaphor for incompleteness.
Yeah.
I really like that because that's hopeful. That we're already complete.
No, I'm really going strong on that. Actually, neediness. Okay, so neediness, and I call it like concern. Concern goes to worry, goes to anxiety goes to fear, and that's the formula that the world runs on. And our attention is always laced with those poisons. Even concern, which sounds so noble. I'm concerned for you. I'm concerned for Haiti. I'm concerned for all that. But it's a fear thing, and it's laced with anxiety, and it really doesn't produce anything more than anxiety. And the other side has got to be, I'm trying to figure it out, how to say it, And, okay, the other word for that is seriousness. I'm serious about this. You got to be serious. You got to get it right. Tomorrow's going to be a better day. We're going to fix it. Oh yeah, we'll pitch in together. We'll do this right. Blah 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 blah. And that's anxiety. It's total anxiety. And the other side, I call it contentment. Somehow you got to come out of contentment, curiosity, interest, happiness. Life is a play. Fixing the world is a play. It's got to be a play. It'll never work as a serious business, and it'll only create more problems. And as a play, you've got huge energy, and you're actually infecting the world with your joy. And then that's the only thing that works, really, because you said, is it an attitude? Is it an attitude? And I say absolutely 100%, but I don't have to state that as kind of like I don't just have to claim that's true, try it out. But I believe that, if it's not 99, it's 100%, that attitude creates our lives.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
And a lot of religions have gone that way because they say, be grateful, for instance. And they point you toward gratitude, but in the same time, they're also still believing in the formula that you're needy, because there's original sin and there's other things that you got to get really buck up and get serious with the Lord and these kind of things. So there's a lot of fear-based stuff there too. So they really haven't transcended it, even though they point you in the right way. Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. So the attitude is what I kind of focus on these days.
It's attitude. I like that. Attitude.
How can you do it? I mean, that's the question, is like, how can you infect somebody with that knowing, somehow? It doesn't really happen just by telling them.
No, it comes by their, I think by presence, by just your attitude. You don't have to convince somebody that you're grateful or joyful. It's there, and if they don't get it, they don't get it, Yeah, I don't want to advertise my joy, do an infomercial.
Why not, I mean, we'll try anything.
You should. Because I truly feel like I walk in gratitude in terms of, I've always felt quite amazed that I'm in a body. And on this earth, it's just an amazement to me. It's just something I can't get over.
So it's just that joy that's infectious,
Yeah.
And then that your really practice is probably really, really good, and I guess you get a really good result with that kind,
Mm-hmm. But I don't even think of results, I just think of, let's see what's going to happen next. Richard, I have to go.
Whoa, I'm going to cry.
I'm just an idea.
It's been so wonderful, Rusty. You're just a real ball of energy, I'll tell you. You are a really beautiful living attitude of joy and curiosity. And it's really infectious. I think we can all feel it.
Thanks. Thank you.
So,
thank you. And thank you for this opportunity, privilege, because just to add my voice to the chorus, because you're creating a choir with your show.
So everybody, Rusty Moe, we'll tell you, and down below we'll show you where his books are available, and you can check him out. So thanks so much for coming. And
super.
Thank you, Rusty.
All righty. Bye-bye.
Bye.